Excuse me, thank you. This morning's learning is sponsored by the Edison and Stern families to mark the third yortzeit of Jacob S. Edison, Yaakov Shlomo ben Yosef Nassan Zichrono Livracha, on the 19th of Teves. He was beloved husband, father, grandfather, and brother, and also to mark the yortzeit of Elliot Salisbury, Elio ben Nachum Zichrono Livracha, brother of Esther Edison, the 27th of Teves. Just want to say for a moment, there's a lot that we could say personally about Jake Edison as a person and absolutely as a devoted volunteer in our shul. I just want to share one memory that I have of many memories, but I just want to share, I used to see him all the time in the office in the afternoons, counting out that tzedakah money. And that was his thing. And there's a big mushel in that, if you think about it, because it was important. We needed that tzedakah money. People needed that tzedakah money. But Jake Edison was going to get it right down to the last penny. And if anything would happen, if any number was off, he'd just start all over again, because that's the kind of person that he was. Much of what our shul is today is fruits of his labors. And we're very honored to have Esther and Razel with us this morning, and his neshama should have an aliyah. And we're still so honored to have Esther Edison so involved in the shul in all kinds of ways. But thank you for including us in remembering a very special person today. We're going to begin with chapter 2, verse 23. Chapter 2, verse 23. And it was in those many days, Vayamas Melech Mitzrayim, the king of Egypt died. And the Jewish people groaned from the work, and they cried out. And their cries came up to God from their work. Now, there's something very strange here. You know, you tell me they had a lot of work, and they were breaking from the work. I can understand that. Are they upset that the king of Egypt died? It doesn't seem like the king of Egypt was this great friend of the Jews. What's even the relevance of the king of Egypt dying? Isn't the point that they had all this work? Isn't that the point? So let's start with the Ramban. Ramban on Pasuk Chaf Gimel. It's the second Ramban on Pasuk Chaf Gimel. Vayamas Melech Mitzrayim vayeonchu nitztareya vayashochet tinokos miYisrael v'rochet b'damam lashon Rashi. Rashi brings down a very interesting medrash. We have different sources that say that when a person gets tsaras, when a person gets leprosy, it's like they're dead. So he says the idea is that the king of Egypt had tsaras, had leprosy, and he would bathe in the blood of Jewish children. And so that, according to the Medrash, that's a whole new level of the travails of the Jewish people in Egypt. So now they're crying on a whole new level. Not only are they working hard, but their children are being killed for the medical needs of the king. So according to this trial, he actually didn't even die. It was just he had these medical needs. They used literally the blood of the children, the Jewish children, for it. The Ramban says, yes, that's a medrash. He says, but I'll tell you what I think the straightforward meaning of the verse is. So says the Ramban, it's a very normal thing. If you are citizens in a country of a terrible, terrible monarch, you're desperately waiting for the day that he'll die. Because if he dies, things might be different. But the Ramban says, you know what happened? The king died, and then there was even a bigger jerk in the palace. And that was when all hope was lost. Ki amru avdasik fasenu nigzarlu lanu v'yivcharu mavas b'chaim. Then they said, wow, this was the one thing that we thought could change. That one of these days we have a new ruler. But there was a new ruler because the first king passed, and the new ruler was just as mean, if not worse, than the old one. That's when the Jewish people really lost it, because there's no hope. There's no hope for anything to change. Okay, let's go on to chapter 3, verse 2. Moshe is shepherding the flock of Yisro, his father-in-law, and he takes the sheep into the desert, and he comes to the mountain that will be known as Har Chorev, Har Sinai, but he doesn't know the significance of that at the moment. Verse 2, and an angel of God appeared to him within flame from within the bush. Moshe saw the bush was burning, but the bush was not becoming consumed by the flames. And from this scene, God, through his angel, begins to speak to Moshe, reveals himself to Moshe. It's a very powerful image, the burning bush, that the flame doesn't consume it. What are we supposed to learn from that? What's the significance of that image? And surely there are different ideas about this, but I just want to share with you one idea. It's the second sforno on Pasuk Beis. This was like somewhat of the riddle, so to say, the mystery of the prophecy, that this was part of the way that God was conveying a message to Moshe through this image. The angel was within the bush, and there's this flame going all around the angel. Lahoros, this teaches, anytime you have a righteous person in this world, they're like one of God's angels. So you have an angel within the burning bush. So imagine you have a righteous person within the flames of Egypt. Shahayu lahem sarovim v'salonim, with all the thorns of Egypt, so to say. Hasne yivar bo'esh b'tsaras eser makos. The bush of Egypt will burn through the pain of the 10 plagues. Avalo yichlu ba'osanat saros. But they will not be wiped out from those travails. So the idea is, according to the Sforno, the idea is the angel represents a righteous person and righteous people among the Jews in Egypt. The bush is the Egyptians, or the land of Egypt, and the flames, all the punishments that we poured down upon the Egyptians, that for all the punishments, the angel within the bush will still be there. That the righteous of Klal Yisrael will still survive the pains inflicted upon the Egyptians. And then the Sforno just goes on to make a point. We won't see it inside, but he just makes a very interesting point. He says clearly the level of the prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu was significantly elevated over the course of the story of the Chumash, because here you have Moshe speaking directly face to face to God later on, whatever that means, later on in the Chumash, and here it's like some mystery with a burning bush and an angel. It's a very powerful mashal, but all he's saying is the Moshe Rabbeinu's level of prophecy gradually ascended. Interesting thing to think about. Okay, let's go on to verse 22. One of the famous questions, and there are many answers to this question. One of the famous questions associated with the whole story of Egypt is, it says in the pasuk that the Jewish people will borrow things from the Egyptians upon their departure, and then of course they end up keeping it. So how does that work? Many answers, but let's just see one approach. Pasuk Chaf Beis. This is God telling Moshe what's going to happen in Egypt. A Jewish woman will borrow from her neighbor and from she in whose home she was living, items of silver and items of gold and different garments. You'll take these things, you'll place them on your own children, and you will clean out the Egyptians. Okay, sworn on Pasuk Chaf Beis. V'nitzal temes Mitzrayim, you'll clean out the Egyptians. Afopi shetekablu hakol mehem derech hashala. When you originally accept these items from the Egyptians, it will be officially as a loan. V'tiu chayavim lahachzir, and the halacha would be that you'd be obligated to give it back. Hine tiknu achar kach es hakol bedin. Everything works out later. Beradfam acharechem lilachem bochem v'lishlol shlalchem. What happens? They chase after you once you leave Egypt. They want to take things from you. Ki amnon kasher mesu ba'osa Muhammad. Then they're going to die at sea. The Egyptians will die at sea. Ki Hashem nocham, because God fought for them. Hayibedin mida kneged mida. Kol shlal harotvim linear dafim. Keminag bakom Muhammad. The Sforno says this was the military norm, that if you had an aggressor attacking another nation, and clearly the goal of the aggressor was to take everything that nation had, if the aggressor is defeated, if you were ready to take my thing, you're implying that it's all right if I take your thing, if I defeat you. Those are the rules that we're playing by, if you're coming after me. So the Sforno says it's a very interesting thing. According to the Sforno, it really was a loan. It really was supposed to be given back. But because the Egyptians chased them, after they left Egypt, then if they'd be able to defeat the Egyptians, then the rule would be they'd be allowed to take what the Egyptians own. And so therefore, the Sforno says, once the Egyptians die at sea, then it no longer has status as things they've borrowed from the Egyptians. Now it's things that the Egyptians owned, but the Jewish people are now plundering from their aggressors. Interesting pshat. Again, there's many approaches here, but I just want to reflect for a moment on the Sforno. It's one of the greatest challenges in life. We have situations and they seem so bad and so hopeless, but also, why would God be doing this to me? And we see the psukim with the Jewish people, when they look up and they see the water is on one side and the Egyptians are coming on the other side. Why in the world did God put us in this situation? And according to the Sforno, it was this great blessing that's just waiting to just wait till it just comes around the curve. Because now that they're chasing you, you'll be able to keep everything. It's just something worth thinking about a little bit. Okay, let's see one more thing. Chapter 4, verse 19. Chapter 4, verse 19. So Moshe took the job. The discussion with Moshe in the desert is over. And now Moshe went back to Yisro in the land of Midian to his wife, etc. Moshe plans on going to Egypt soon, but he hasn't gone yet. Verse 19, Vayomer Hashem Moshe b'Midian. And Hashem said to Moshe in Midian, Lech shuv Mitzrayim. Time to go back to Egypt. All the people who had wanted to kill you have died, and now it's time to go back. Why does the pasuk emphasize that God said this to Moshe in Midian? The previous pasuk already said that Moshe went back to his father-in-law Yisro and told him, I'm going to go. And then God says to Moshe, it's time to go to Egypt. So where else would you think he was? Of course he's in Midian. We will talk about this tomorrow, God willing. Today we discussed two ideas about the significance of the death of the king of Egypt for when the real travails of the Jews really raised another notch. Why were they so much more upset when the king of Egypt died? We discussed the Sforno's idea of the symbolism of the burning bush. And we also discussed the Sforno's suggestion as to the status of those items which the Jewish people borrow from the Egyptians.